Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn, 22 years old. Today I want to share with you a story, a tragedy that changed my life forever. I do not tell this story to seek sympathy or forgiveness, but I want mystery to become a reminder, a lesson for those who are in a similar situation. I hope that from my mistakes, you will find the right path for yourself. Please listen, because this story may not only be mine, but also that of any of us. And now I invite everyone to join me in the story. I would like to invite you to subscribe to our channel and like our videos. Every click of yours is valuable to us as it gives us more motivation to continue sharing more meaningful stories with you if you like our content. We encourage you to share and leave questions below. Every interaction is a way to build a closer and more connected community. And I invite you to stay with us until the end of the video. I am very grateful to you. My name is Evelyn, 22 years old, living in Texas, United States. I was born into a poor family where daily life is always about struggling to overcome difficulties. From a young age, I understood that nothing comes easy, and everything in life requires effort after graduating from high school. I did not have the opportunity to enter university like my peers. Instead, I started working as a cleaner in a small hospital near my home. The work was not easy, but I always tried my best to earn money to support my family every morning. I rise before dawn and make my way to the hospital, where I begin my shift with meticulous care. I clean each patient's room, scrub every hallway, and ensure that the entire facility is spotless and orderly. My work is thorough, and I take pride in maintaining a hygienic environment for both the patients and the staff. Their routine is demanding, but it is essential for the smooth operation of the hospital. After my day at the hospital, I don't head home to rest. Instead, every evening, I set up a small stool on a bustling sidewalk near the city center. Under the glow of the streetlights, it transforms into a street vendor selling water and coffee. To passers-by, I personally prepare each cup of hot coffee, carefully crafting each brew, and chill the bottles of water to offer refreshing relief to my customers. This small business not only supplements my income, but also provides a unique opportunity to interact with a diverse array of people, from fellow workers to those leading entirely different lives. Each encounter enriches my perspective. Though the days are long and exhausting, never let fatigue dampen my spirits and greet everyone with a smile, knowing that each day's effort brings me one step closer to my dreams. On the evening of May 15th, 2022, I stood at my usual spot with my small cart serving coffee and soft drinks. It was a warm evening, with a gentle breeze, and I was busy preparing coffee for a few regular customers. Suddenly, the headlights of a luxury car illuminated my humble setup. Intrigued, I glanced up to see a man. Stepping out of the car, he was impeccably dressed in a neat suit exuding elegance and confidence. He approached me with a warm smile and said, "Please give me a hot cup of coffee, your special one." His tone was casual yet charming. I felt a bit uneasy, as my clientele usually consisted of ordinary workers, and his refined appearance was out of the ordinary from me stand, trying to mask my discomfort. I responded, "Are you sure I only have cheap coffee?" I smiled, hoping to downplay any potential embarrassment. To my surprise, he laughed and shook his head, saying, "Form material things are not important. The taste and the story behind it are what I value, Mom." His response was unexpected and immediately put me at ease. I prepared his coffee, and as he took his first sip, we began to chat. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, bridging the gap between our seemingly different worlds. His name was Dominic, a highly successful businessman, but as we talked, I quickly realized he was not what I had imagined a wealthy person to be. He was simple, easygoing, and always genuinely attentive. From that evening onward, Dominic often stopped by my stool each time, bringing smile and sharing fascinating stories. We gradually became more familiar with each other, and every evening I spent chatting with Dominic, I felt a growing connection in my soul, a feeling I had never experienced before. After a few months, Dominic asked me out, although I was still a bit hesitant because of our differences. I couldn't deny that my heart was moved by his sincerity. We embarked on a simple but warm relationship. Our dates were not at fancy restaurants, but consisted of walks, in the park, and sitting together, talking all evening. A year later, on June 23rd, Dominic proposed to me during a stunning sunset by the river. The ring he gave me was modest, but his eyes were filled with sincerity and warmth, overwhelmed with happiness, and noted in agreement. We held a small but meaningful wedding, inviting only our closest friends and family. Although it was not lavish, it was the most fulfilling day of my life as Ibagan, a new chapter with the person I love. After the wedding, I moved into Dominic's house, which he shared with his grandfather. The house was located in a quiet area and was spacious and cozy without being overly fussy. Dominic was always thoughtful and wanted me to have more comfortable life. He told me that I didn't need to continue working at the hospital. You have worked too hard, he said. Now you just need to stay at home, take care of our grandfather, and keep her home. Initially, I felt a wave of nostalgia for my old job where I had invested so much time and effort. However, understanding my husband's good intentions, I agreed to. The change. Caring for Dominant XG grandfather turned out to be manageable. He was a gentle old man, and although his health had declined, he remained mentally sharp. He frequently shared stories of his youth and cherished family memories with me. Life after marriage brought me genuine happiness. I meticulously took care of every meal and every little corner of the house to create a warm and inviting space for the entire family. Dominic also showed his love for me deeply. Every night before bed, he would spend time talking to me, ask about my day, and sharing details about the projects he was working on. However, this joy was short-lived due to the nature of his job. Dominic often had to travel for business. Initially, his trips lasted about a week, but over time, his absences grew longer, sometimes extending up to a month each time he returned home. I felt a surge of joy and peace within the family, but his departures left the house feeling emptier than ever. Dominic's prolonged absences made me feel increasingly lonely despite my efforts to occupy my time by taking care of his grandfather and managing the household chores. The void in my heart continued to grow. I missed our evening conversations, the warm hugs before bed. Every time I glanced at the empty side of the bed, a chill ran through me. The longing and lack of affection began to consume me thoughts. Although I loved Dominic and treasured our life together, I couldn't escape the feeling of being lost in my own home. On the morning of August 5th, 2023, Dominic was preparing for a lengthy business trip that was expected to keep him away for a month. I stood by the door, my gaze fixed on him as he got into the car. My heart weighed down with the familiar sense of loneliness that would follow in his absence. As the car began to move, he glanced back at me, offering a warm smile and a gentle wave. He had always been good at masking his own concerns, but today the smile seemed a little too forced. As the car slowly disappeared from sight, I exhaled deeply, trying to calm myself and remind myself that everything would be fine, even though the ache of solitude lingered. After tidying up the remnants of breakfast, I set about preparing a meal for my grandfather. It was a routine I'd grown accustomed to, one that helped me feel connected to him. Despite the growing distance, I often felt I carefully carried the tray of food to his room, as I had done many times before. But today, as soon as I stepped inside, I noticed something was different. His eyes, once full of warmth and kindness, no longer held that familiar gentleness. Instead, they seemed distant, almost unfathomable, as though there was something he wanted to say but couldn't quite express. A chill crept down my spine, a sudden sense of unease settling over me, but I pushed it aside, unwilling to let it show. "Grandpa, I've brought your breakfast, please eat," I said softly, placing the tray on the small table beside his bed, trying to keep my voice steady as I turned to leave. His voice stopped me in my tracks. "Evelyn, wait a minute, sit here and talk to me for a while," he called gently. His tone was still warm, but there was something about it that made me pause, a sense fun certainty I couldn't quite shake despite my hesitation. I sat down in the chair opposite. Him? My mind racing. At first he spoke casually as if nothing were wrong, but soon his words took a different turn. I sat there, listening to the familiar stories about Dominic's childhood and the family tales I had heard more times than I could count. I nodded politely, offering a smile, trying my best to keep engaged with the conversation. But then, without warning, the tone shifted. You and Dominic are lucky to have found each other, he said, his voice softer than usual, almost pensive. But I know Dominic is always traveling, leaving you on your own. Do you ever feel lonely? The question caught me off guard, and my heart skipped a beat. I felt a surge of anxiety, but forced myself to stay composed, maintaining a calm exterior. Yes, I'm used to it, sir. Dominic's work keeps him busy, but I understand it. And I'm empathetic toward him. He nodded, but his gaze intensified, studying me with a depth that felt unsettling, as though he was trying to peer directly into my thoughts. Understand, Evelyn, he said quietly. I went through many lonely days when your grandmother was alive. Losing her, it was excruciating not having her thereby. My side, his words struck a chord deep within, leaving me momentarily speechless. I didn't know how to respond, unsure of what he was truly trying to convey. Just as I was searching for something to say, he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a soft but unmistakably clear tone. Me help you, Evelyn. You shouldn't have to go through this. Alone, the suddenness of his statements, and to chill down my spine, my breath caught in my throat, and I could hardly believe what I just heard. What did you say? It stammered, my mind racing to comprehend the implications of his words. Before I could process the moment, his arm shot out, wrapping around my waist, pulling me toward him with an unexpected force. I froze, my body tensing in shock. Don't be afraid, Evelyn, he murmured, his voice gentle but firm. You don't have to be alone anymore. I felt a wave of panic rise within me, my body tensing as I desperately tried to push him away. Let go of me, this isn't right, I whispered, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and confusion. But he didn't relent. His grip tightened, and in that moment, his hand on my waist felt impossibly firm, as though it was anchoring me to something I couldn't escape. A heavy weariness that had been building inside me for so long suddenly transformed into something else entirely, a strange surrender. The emptiness that had long haunted me, the feeling of lacking, something I couldn't quite define, washed over me, clouding my thoughts and weakening my resolve for reasons I couldn't fully understand. It stopped fighting at my hands, once tense with resistance, slowly fell to my sides, and I let everything unfold around me. Every morning, I brought him his food, and every time I did, his eyes held that same unsettling, unfamiliar look, at first to maintain some distance, to protect myself from whatever it was growing between us. But the need within me, the aching and spoken desire to feel something, anything, began to eclipse my better judgment. The weakness. I felt physical, emotional, overpowered. Any sense of right or wrong I had known, deep down, that we were crossing a line, one that should never have been crossed. But the pull of it was stronger than my ability to resist. It was the morning of September 3rd, 2023, when everything would change forever. I prepared a breakfast tray for my grandfather, just as I always did, carefully arranging the food and bringing it to his room that morning. I felt lighter than usual, unaware that this would be the day that shattered the fragile balance I had tried so hard to maintain. As I set the tray down on the edible and lifted the lid, the steam rising from the bowl of hot porridge and the glass of milk gave the room an almost comforting warmth. Does she want quiet? I murmured, trying to keep the tone light, almost apologetic. I'm sorry for how things turned out. I misguided you. Luan was telling me more about your tripette. I made chicken porridge. Eat it while it's hot. I pulled up a chair and sat beside him as I had done countless times before he began to eat, asking me the usual questions about the house, about Dominic, the small details we always shared in our conversations. I kept my composure, but underneath it all I felt torn apart by guilt, a feeling that had been gnawing at me for so long. When he finished Eating, I cleared the tray as usual, my hands trembling with a mix of unease and something deeper. But instead of leaving, as he typically did, I felt his hand close around mine, pulling me back. "Evelyn, stay here, with me a little longer." He said, his eyes locked onto mine, holding a deeper, more intense meaning. I hesitated, my heart racing, my mind screaming at me to walk away. But instead, I reluctantly sank back into the chair, beside him, trying desperately to keep the distance between us. "Do you need anything else? I'm done," I asked, my voice betraying my growing sense of discomfort even before he spoke. I already knew something was wrong. "You're such an incredible woman. Dominic is truly fortunate to have someone like you," he said, his voice wavering just enough for me to notice. I forced a smile, unsure of how to respond. "I just did what I had to do," Grandpa murmured, trying to pull my hand away and stand up, but he wouldn't release it. Please don't go." "Yeah," he insisted, his gaze intense, as if trying to read my very soul. "You know Dominic is often away, and I can see how lonely you are. I saw it in your grandmother. When I was young, don't bear that loneliness. Alone you deserve more." Before I could find the words to answer, he gently tugged me closer. This time I remained silent, my voice stuck in my throat. Maybe it was because surrendering to my weakness had become second nature. Perhaps I was simply too worn out to continue fighting the emptiness that had taken root in my heart. We crossed a line again. But this time, there was no awareness of the consequences, no recognition of the passing of time. The room, still and suffocating, was only disturbed by the sound of shallow breaths in the thick darkness surrounding us. Then suddenly the door burst open, its harsh creak shattering the fragile silence. Both my grandfather and I snapped our heads towards the sound, and the sight that greeted us left me frozen, my voice failing me completely. There stood Dominic, my husband, his face rigid with fury and disbelief, his eyes wide in a mixture of horror and rage. "Evelyn, what the hell are you doing?" Dominic's voice rang out sharp and unforgiving, reverberating in the room like a thunderclap that shattered the silence. It stood, frozen, unable to move or speak, my entire body trembling as his words hit me like a physical blow. My hands shook uncontrollably, and in a frantic attempt to shield myself from the overwhelming surge of shame and humiliation crashing over me, I quickly grabbed the towel from nearby and wrapped it around myself. My grandfather, equally shocked, stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the floor, unable to meet Dominic's furious gaze. He said nothing. If the weight of the moment had rendered him mute, his silence louder than any words could have been. "Evelyn!" Dominic's shouted again, his voice thick with anger and hurt cracking under the strain. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, seemed to burn with rage. "Pack your things and get out of my house now." I opened my mouth, desperate to explain, to beg for understanding, but my voice betrayed me, choked in my throat. A lump formed there, as if the very air had turned solid, leaving me gasping for breath. Tears swelled up in my eyes, blurring my vision, but before I could gather myself, Dominic had already turned his back, storming out of the room with a violent slam of the door. The echo of the door slamming shut felt like the final nail in the coffin of my shattered life. I sank to the floor, unable to hold myself up any longer. The weight of his rejection crashing over me in that moment. I knew it was over. There was no going back after what had just happened. I pulled myself up, wiping my face and trying to steady my shaking hands. My thoughts were a blur, my mind racing but offering no clarity. I walked out of the room, slowly numb to everything around me, and began the painful task of gathering my things. It was clear this house, this life I had built with him, was no longer mine after the divorce, with only a few belongings and little money to my name. I found myself standing in the middle of Sacramento, California, starting from scratch. I rented a small corner on the side of a busy street, barely scraping by as I set up a humble vegetable stall. Life had begun again, but the road ahead seemed long, uncertain, and fraught with challenges every day. I woke up at the crack of dawn, the cold morning air biting at my skin as I made my way to the market to purchase the freshest vegetables I could find with each item I carefully placed in small baskets. I hoped it would be enough to earn me just enough money to cover the most basic of expenses. The work was grueling and demanding, but I saw it as the only way to atone for the mistakes I had made. It became my routine, my penance, as I stood at the stall each day, watching women stroll by with their children and families. My heart would sink. I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss as I watched them laugh and share moments of happiness. Every family I saw reminded me of what I had lost, the loving husband and the home I had once dreamed of, building. I thought about the choices Imad, the moments where I allowed weakness and poor decisions to shape my fate. These thoughts filled me with a deep sorrow as I realized that those decisions had ultimately led to the destruction of everything I held dear. On many nights I found myself alone in the small rented room where I now lived. The silence was deafening, and the weight of my regrets was suffocating. Tears would flow uncontrollably as I sat there, the pain of knowing I had hurt the own man I'd promised to love forever cutting. Through me, I knew that the wounds I had caused might never heal, and I would have to live with the consequences of my actions reflecting on it all. I understood that no matter the circumstances, my wrongdoings were inexcusable. I had allowed myself to be tempted to be led astray by loneliness and weakness, abandoning all reason in doing. So I had not only harmed myself, but also those I loved, tearing apart my family and pushing myself deeper into apathy of regret. With this story, I want to offer a piece of advice to anyone, especially women who may find themselves in a situation like mine. Don't let fleeting emotions or moments of weakness cloud your judgment and cause you to lose everything. It's important to find a way to address your struggles honestly and reasonably. Be truthful with yourself and with the people around you. Don't fall into the same trap I did, where temporary satisfaction leads to a lifetime of pain. I can't turn back time and undo my mistakes, but I hope my experience serves as a warning, a reminder to others not to repeat the pain I've endured. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Before we say goodbye, if you have not yet subscribed, invite you to press the subscribe button. Their support, even if it seems like a small gesture, means a lot to us and drives us to continue creating content with heart. Don't forget to give it a like if you liked what we shared today, as every interaction helps us grow and allows us to continue connecting with you through stories that matter. Thank you for being part of this community.